This is one of those he needs no introduction conversations here.
Yes.
The sound of art is in the studio with us right now. Mr. Jim Doyle.
Let us take our worship. Yes.
Jim Doyle's been in St. Louis radio for over 30 years. We remember him from KADI way back in the day when we were at Casey.
Was that your first gig in St. Louis?
It was, yeah.
Oh, how about that?
The old Mr. Richard Miller.
Yeah.
Slim Pickens as he was.
And you didn't go running out of town after that. So.
Top-notch talent. Yeah.
But I think he's probably most well known for his years at KZK.
Yeah,
doing
most
the
recently.
Yes. How many years? How many?
17.
Whoa.
Wow,
17,
that's
18.
amazing.
And that was the second time. I had been there before, left, went to the West Coast for a while, and then came back.
That's right. You also went to Japan.
Went to Japan for
Did
4 years.
You did radio in Japan.
Yeah.
What was that
Jim
like?
Doyle's American Music Station.
Who's the audience? Are they English-speaking people in Japan?
The whole concept, it was really interesting how it was very, very sort of forward seeing at the time. It was the early 80s, and the most popular radio station in Japan had been for years the Far East Network, which is the U.S. Armed Forces radio. Mm-hmm. And all they did really was run syndicated programming. Casey Kasem and Rick Dees and American Country Countdown, but it was the most popular radio show or radio station, and it was out of Tokyo. So you couldn't get it in Osaka, Japan, which is the second largest city in Japan. So the local FM station, and there was only one. So there was no competition.
No competition.
So they decided to do a mini FEN, Far East Network. So they hired me. And I saw the ad in one of the trades, and it was funny because at the time I was working at KMOX. I was 26 years old, and I was wearing a suit and tie. This was the old Robert Hyland days.
Yeah, right.
And I thought, I'm too young to be doing this. And everybody said, you're out of your mind. You're working for one of the greatest radio stations in the country, and you're going to pack up and go to Japan.
Yeah, but it was an experience of a lifetime.
Right, and I went to, and it's interesting, I started doubting myself because all these people were telling me. I mean, Jack Buck was like, you're what? Bob Costas said, Doyle, you're the youngest person that KMOX has ever hired, and you're leaving? What's wrong with you?
Although Bob Costas was 12 when they hired him. Close.
So I went, and I had always gotten along with Robert Hyland, and I went in and I sat down with him and I told him the scenario, and he said, well, you're going to go, aren't you?
See, Highland is like that.
Yeah. And he said, you go as long as you want and come back, I'll give you a job back. But go see the world.
Yeah. But how did you get the job? Did you get the job, or did you go there hoping to get the job?
No, I interviewed through an American company in New York.
And then they said you got it?
On the day that John Lennon was shot.
Oh, my.
I was in New York that day.
Were you?
I was there actually.
You're everywhere, Joy. Every day.
I am. Omnipresent.
She was. She's in a lot of places at the wrong time.
I was actually on the street the day it happened.
She was also, this is true, this sounds weird, but she was in a hotel room at the hotel where John Belushi died.
Yes,
the day he died.
The day he died.
She was in a hotel room with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah.
And she was auditioning for a part with Robert De Niro.
And I was in Sri Lanka the day the Prima Dasa was blown up.
Scary woman.
And
she was in Russia when Perestroika started. Right.
Yes. I think I'm somehow changing the politics of the world.
This is not the only Joy. There's several.
Apparently there are others.
Well, the John Lennon story, it was interesting because I went to the interview. I met with these Japanese people, the head of the Asahi Broadcasting Company. And, of course, we're working through an interpreter. And this was right when John Lennon had released the Double Fantasy album. And so he was back in the public's eye. He was seen walking with Yoko, and I was staying with a friend of mine from college, and we ordered a pizza, and we walked to get the pizza, and he said, you want to walk by the Dakota? We might see Lennon. And we got the pizza. I said, no, not really. I don't care. And we walked back to the apartment, turned on Monday Night Football.
You could have saved his life.
And heard Howard Cosell say, we've just received word that John Lennon was shot.
Wow. But you know what is even more, earth-shaking is that I could have seen Jim Doyle that day.
You guys.
Yeah.
We came
See, this is the
close.
problem with having. This is why we have avoided having Jim Doyle as a guest in here as long as we have, because we knew we would never get around to the topic at hand.
I see joy everywhere I go.
So what are you doing at the Radio Arts Foundation, Jim?
What are you doing there?
What are you doing there?
The Radio
You're
Arts
the sound of
Foundation.
art now.
Yeah, the Radio Arts Foundation is the new, not new, we're 2.5 years old now, but that's in the world of radio, that's relatively new.
Yeah.
The new classical station. As many of your viewers and listeners would know, that KFUO, one of the longest standing radio stations, Classic 99.1, went dark, was sold in July of 2010. Mm-hmm. And Jim Connett, who was the program director at the time and had been for years, is an old friend, and I had worked with him in St. Louis radio, and he knew that I was out of work at the time. And he called up and said, would you like to be a part of this? And I said, of course. And we worked for the next 2 years to get it on the air.
And you know, Jim Connett, I call him Connett. I thought I was going to call him Jim Connett, but let's just call him JC.
We call him a lot of things.
A lot of things when he's around. He's running it like a rock and roll radio station.
Yeah.
He should be back in rock radio because he's doing everything right.
Yeah.
I mean, he understands social media. He understands the internet. And you guys you have several internet streams. Mm-hmm. You have HD radio at 96.3, I believe. Mm-hmm. It's amazing that he's done it right.
Well, and we're trying to do it against the grain of that traditional classical radio station.
You're interviewing people.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of
well, and we do
stuff.
4 hours of jazz on Saturday nights. We run a blues show.
Well, you see it as art. It's all art.
Yeah.
You know. So and you are covering an area that you don't hear everywhere else in St. Louis. So
the concept basically, Ron, is the kind of people that choose a regular diet of classical music they'll bend the rules with you if you tell them why you're doing it. If you explain the fact that, okay, like the other day it was, not the other day, but it was Cole Porter's birth anniversary. And I wanted to play a Cole Porter piece. Well, there's plenty of Cole Porter classic pieces that are done by orchestras or string ensembles, but I played a piece off a 1992 album that featured the Neville Brothers.
Deep cuts.
Deep cuts. I learned that from Radio Rich. But so I played In the Still of the Night by the Neville Brothers. And I said, it's Cole Porter's birthday, and I played it, and it's a beautiful, beautiful
And you
rendition.
have that kind of freedom to do that.
Yes.
That's
we
great.
have that,
Like the old days of Keishi.
Right.
That's great.
And I got probably a half a dozen emails from people who said, that was cool.
Well, that's good.
It's really nice.
Yes.
I like when you break the rules every once in a while.
Right. Yeah.
And it gives a lot more meaning.
Yeah.
Who else is on the air? I know
Okay.
Jim does a show, right?
Jim does some work on the air. I do the morning show 6 to 10. Kathy Lawton Brown, who is a fairly well-known singer around town, she teaches, and she was a longtime music professor at University of Missouri St. Louis. And then Tom Sutholt does afternoons, and Tom had been a mainstay on the old Classic 99 KFUO, and is just literally a walking dictionary when it comes to classical music.
And he's your program director.
He's the program director, right.
What are your call letters now?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. It's we are KNOU HD2.
Okay.
So we're the same call letters as the big radio station whose signal we're borrowing, basically. So it's 96.3.
Okay.
Which is now KNOU.
Yeah, now 96.3.
Right.
So, yeah.
So legally, those are our call
But what
letters.
are you calling yourself?
Raf-Stl.
Okay.
The Radio Arts Foundation of St. Louis.
Listen, Jim, there are so many things I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
I am going to officially ask you right now if you can come back. Because I want to talk to you about this education.
Will you buy me lunch at the fountain?
Yeah, next time I'll buy you lunch. Yeah,
And he
I'll
might
do
sing
that.
back up.
Yeah, because there are things about you, I've known you for over 30 years, and there are things about you I didn't know until I started doing my research for this, and I want to talk about those things.
Great.
Good.
Yeah.
So we will do that. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me, Ron. Enjoy. Well, you're going to pay me back by coming on the Radio Arts Foundation.
Perfect. Yes.
She's a great guest.
Oh.
You never know. You never know
first.
what you're going to get to
Good
talk
luck
about.
with that.
Thanks, guys.
Oh my. And thanks to Clayton's Bakery and Deli in Des Peres, offering fresh-made baked goods using recipes from St. Louis's earliest history and fresh baked bread right from the bakery. 11,744 Manchester Road in Des Peres.
She's done this before.